Jesus, Refugee, Renegade, Redeemer with Bear Grylls is brought to you by Mercy Ships.
mercyships.org. Be part of the adventure.
I'm Bear Grylls, and I've been to the highest point on the planet, and I'm now here at the Dead Sea, at the lowest point in the entire world. Get ready for the ultimate adventure. I'm in Israel, following the footsteps of a man who changed the entire world forever. The Refugee, the Renegade, and the Redeemer. Jesus of Nazareth.
I grew up hearing stories from the Bible. Moses parting the Red Sea, David slaying Goliath, and the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. But being here, in the place where it all happened, changes everything. These aren't just bedtime stories. They're dangerous and they're real. Take Jesus, for example. By the age of 2, he'd been worshipped as a Messiah and targeted by a murderous king. After that, his family survived as refugees in Egypt before returning to Nazareth. The great prophets had made wild predictions about the coming Messiah. And yet the early years of Jesus were surprisingly quiet. And then all of a sudden, he shows up in a big way, right here on the Jordan River, alongside another legendary figure.
There was one prophet that Jesus said was greater than all of the other prophets, which you bear in mind the company. You've got Moses, Elijah, Isaiah. These are big figures. But Jesus said this prophet is greater than all of them. And he was called John the Baptist.
John was a true wilderness warrior. He wore camel hair and lived in the wild, eating locust and honey. He led a nomadic life with no fixed abode, and he had a reputation for telling the truth, especially if he disagreed with you. John confronted kings, priests, and everyday people alike. And get this, he was Jesus's first cousin.
He was a wild one by all accounts, but he had a loud and a bold message. And it was this, that the Messiah, the Savior of the world, had finally arrived. No wonder you ruffle some feathers.
The journey ahead will take me through the Jordan Valley to the Jordan River, the site where Jesus encountered the fiery trailblazer, John the Baptist. Then I'll follow the river down to the lowest point on earth, the Dead Sea. From there, I'll traverse the unruly Judean desert, where Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness alone. I'll survive on what I can along the way, to get just a glimpse of what that experience might have been like. With heat over 100 degrees and no way to avoid the exposure, this one's gonna be full on.
Okay, I've got a kayak cached somewhere along here. Keep moving a little bit. All of this now is just the River Jordan. And this river would have played a huge role in the life of not only Jesus, but also John the Baptist. You know, when he wasn't out in the desert doing his thing with locusts and honey, the wild man, he was down in this river baptizing people.
John was a straight shooter, calling out hypocrites and urging people to change their crooked ways. He said his mission was to prepare the way for the promised Messiah. Even though John was an outsider, people flocked to him, confessing their wrongs and begging for a fresh start through this mysterious rite of passage known as baptism. Now that I've got my canoe, I'm one step closer to meeting my friend who will share the stories surrounding the baptism of Jesus himself.
Okay, just head downriver for a few miles. And this river is just spectacular. You can see why it's given life to so many people, so many communities for thousands of years.
This precious water source originates at the highest peak in Israel. It flows down to the Sea of Galilee, then drops hundreds of meters below sea level to become the lowest river in the world. Altogether, the Jordan River stretches 250 kilometers until it finally empties into the Dead Sea. I'll be traveling there soon after I unpack a big moment that happened in Jesus' life right here in these waters.
Okay, there's our guy. Hey, Israel.
Hey.
Who better than a man named Israel to walk me through what happened here 2,000 years ago?
Thank you.
He studied the stories of the Bible his whole life and witnessed hundreds of baptisms.
So I guess both Jesus and John the Baptist, they knew this river. They would have loved this river. They probably swam in this river.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how would it work for John the Baptist? What would he do?
John the Baptist will come here, and many people will come to be baptized.
Why do people want to get baptized? Why?
Baptism is a symbol of washing, purification. It's been in the priest in the temple before sacrifice. It was a Jewish custom throughout the generation.
In rivers?
In rivers, in pools, washing for purification. It's a symbol for purification. God called us to live a life that is good life, to bring true love, not hypocrisy, but true love to one another.
That's difficult.
Oh, yeah. But John the Baptist at the time came to preach that message.
And I suppose many of the people who were baptized, they weren't like the religious scholars, were they? They were everyday people.
Everyday people.
And then one day, Jesus comes, a regular man. What happened?
He recognized him as his cousin. When Jesus came, he said to him, "Now I should baptize by you. You come to me?" Jesus says, "Let it be." And John the Baptist baptized him.
This moment is a major turning point for Jesus. For about 30 years, Jesus is living a quiet life in Nazareth. But all that changes when he meets his cousin John in the Jordan River. The eyewitness accounts are pretty dramatic. John dips his cousin in the water, but when Jesus comes up, the entire atmosphere shifts. We're told the sky ripped open and people heard a voice booming from heaven, saying, "This is my son, in whom I am well pleased." And then a dove flew down and landed on Jesus like a sign of approval from God.
Sometimes it's hard to understand the religious language. Sometimes I find that hard, but I understand the thing of I've done many things wrong. And I need a second chance. We all need second chances.
Yeah.
And the name of Jesus actually means
Salvation.
salvation, which means what? To be rescued, I suppose.
To be rescued, yes. You've done many journeys of being, rescued. You know what is it to be rescued when you are in trouble? We all getting into trouble. We all making mistake. We all need to be rescued, sometimes from ourselves, from who we are, lost in the so many truths, so many ways, so many difficulties, so many temptation. We need to find really who we are, what God called us to be.
Well, I'm doing this journey for many millions of people who will watch it, so I don't know where everyone is at.
Amen.
Maybe some people I'm not quite ready yet. So I guess for wherever people are, you can show me what a baptism will go through, and people can take it wherever they are in their life.
Amen.
For me, it's wonderful. I feel I know this in my heart. I have done for many years, quietly, not always able to articulate it very well. Maybe like many of the people that came to John the Baptist, regular, everyday people. But I have said sorry for my failings many times, every day.
Yeah.
And every day, still in my life, just quietly, I ask for help from the Almighty. But for many people watching this, they will be at different stages on their journey, and you know, we always must give people space to explore.
Amen.
But maybe it's nice for them to see what would happen in a baptism.
Amen. I baptize him in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
There's something very powerful about that sense of water. You know, just before you go in, you're hot, you're dusty, you're covered in all the grime of the desert and life and the road. But when you go in, it's cool and it's refreshing, and you come out and you shake all of that off. And that's very symbolic. I feel that. All of us have made mistakes, screwed up, messed up. You can't earn that gift of a connection with your Father in heaven. You just go in and you ask, and you come out and you're given it. And that seems so counterculture to so much of our lives, where everything you've got to earn. You've got to earn it the hard way. Nothing comes for free. And you can see why that message of Jesus was so powerful, that love transforms everything. I feel refreshed inside in my heart. I feel refreshed in my body because it is a hot day. And I feel grateful for the friendship and your help. So thank you. It's funny for me because I haven't always known a lot about John the Baptist, but I've always loved the sound of it. You know, survivor, loved the wild things, loved wilderness food, honey, locusts, straight talking, you know, definitely on the wilder side of society. I kind of like that in him. And so for me, it's kind of funny to be in this place, right here in this river. John the Baptist, all day, every day, was baptizing people, preparing them for this Messiah that was about to come. And it's like all these moments, you know, they keep building and preparing and like pointing towards what's about to happen. And then look, you brought some, what's that, honey?
I brought some honey and locusts.
And some locusts?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what John would...
This is what John
would live off.
This is, you know, you go in the desert, this is plenty in the desert. This and that.
Well, you're speaking my language. You're
brother.
speaking my... Should we try one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so locust, come on, it's great survival food. Great protein.
Locusts and honey might not sound like a gourmet meal, but these crunchy critters pack some serious protein. They're even a delicacy in many Eastern countries. Until John the Baptist emerged, they were better known as a pest or plague. But John took this threat and turned it into dinner. My kind of guy. But they're not that bad. They taste kind of like sunflower seeds, only with 6 legs and 5 eyes.
You know, the thing about honey is it makes everything taste delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've given me so much. In the water and on the land, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Refugee child, carpenter, and now, according to eyewitnesses, the Son of God. Jesus has officially arrived on the scene. In today's world, this is when you make a name for yourself or seize political power. But once again, Jesus defies expectations. In the ultimate renegade move, he retreats from the limelight and spends 40 days in the Judean wilderness, completely alone. That's where I'm headed now, But first, I'll make a quick stop at the lowest point in the entire world.
Wow, look at this. The Dead Sea. Whew. Almost 1,500 feet beneath sea level here, this lake, and one of the saltiest places on the planet. And like most things in Israel, there's more to it than meets the eye. Okay.
The Dead Sea is unreal. At 1,500 feet below sea level, it's not just the lowest place in Israel, it's the lowest place on the planet. Because of how salty the water is, no fish or wildlife live in this sea. On the surface, it looks dead. But this Dead Sea is actually teeming with 80 species of microorganisms. Like I said, there's more to it than meets the eye. For thousands of years, this location has been known for its healing properties, making fans out of epic figures like Cleopatra and Herod the Great. With pristine air and mineral-rich mud and water, this place became the very first health spa in ancient history.
So I'm heading south now, along the Dead Sea. A few miles along here, we're cut right, and then ditch the inflatable, and then on foot. Okay, here we go. We're going to bring it ashore here. Okay, from here on foot. I guess the idea of this is just to get a little feel, a little taste of what it's like to survive in this Judean desert. Summertime's going to be unforgiving, this one. There's a Land Rover Defender. The other side of this desert, the crew have left me. That's our way out of here. But between here and there, it's going to be hard work. Come on. The Judean wilderness is over 1,500 square kilometers of wild desert. Actually, in Hebrew, it translates literally to the wild land. And you can kind of see why. Water here is super scarce and the wildlife unforgiving. You've got wolves, you've got lynxes, scorpions, vipers. You name it, this place is going to test you.
Jesus came out here by himself. No food, only water. For 40 days. Talk about hardcore. But there's more. Towards the end of this trial, when Jesus was no doubt at his weakest, he'd come face to face with his greatest adversary. For Jesus, this wasn't just a test of his physical endurance, it was a test of spiritual endurance. Jesus would need this type of fortitude for the path that lay ahead of him. And I have a feeling I will too.
Little bull snake. Look at this guy. Yeah, it's about the only other thing that would have been living out here with Jesus. There's a whole ton of snakes. It's constrictor. He'll live off little rodents. He'll grab them, bite them, crush them, consume them. And like so many things out in this desert, he just wants the shade. Look, he's even going for that rock. The consequences for Jesus, 40 days sharing the desert with snakes and reptiles and scorpions. Consequences of one bite, big. The survivor, you can't take anything for granted. And this guy is very good at what he does, staying alive in a harsh climate. I wouldn't want to spend 40 days with these as my only companions, that's for sure. Desert survival, not for the faint-hearted.
Jesus faced his share of enemies during his time on earth, but as the story goes, he confronted his greatest enemy in the wilderness, the tempter, the evil one. Jesus called him the father of lies, Satan. He's often portrayed as a serpent, cunning, deadly, and ready to strike. The Gospels tell us Jesus faced 3 great temptations. The first, to satisfy his hunger by turning stones into bread. Next, to claim power over the earth by bowing down to Satan. And finally, to prove his divinity by leaping off a cliff and summoning angels to catch him. Each temptation Jesus denied. Even here, away from the eyes of the world, Jesus remained committed to lead a life free of earthly ambition. And that's where the tempter got him wrong. Jesus didn't come to conquer the world. He came to set it free.
After 40 days in the wilderness, Jesus was at his most parched, starving, beaten, and desperate. The devil came to him and tempted him, enticed him with everything, to have all the kingdoms of the world at his feet. Who hasn't been through some form of temptation in their life? And when those moments come when we're vulnerable, they're really hard. Jesus knows what it's like to be truly human and fragile and broken and frail, scared. I don't want to believe ever in a God that has never been tempted or gone through hard things or suffered. Jesus came out of this experience hardened, not just physically from the experience, the harsh desert, but also inside, spiritually. And his time of teaching and healing and all these things he was going to do over the next 3 years was about to begin. The one place you don't ever want a snake is crawling up your trouser leg. It's time to leave this snake, the temptations behind. Come on. I mean, wow, look at that for a landscape. Dust, desert, mountains, ravines, just as far as you can see, 360 degrees, just like wild, properly wild. You know, there are not many places on Earth still that feel this remote, this barren, and this unforgiving. It would be a scary experience to be stranded out here. How do you navigate? How do you survive? Find water? Food? Jesus didn't have to worry about that. He was fasting. I don't know if you've ever been without food for 24 hours. People really start to go downhill fast. 40 days without food? That reduces people. You know, they talk of this place as being a furnace. Furnaces forge steel. Jesus must have come out of here hardened. But he was going to need to be for what lay ahead. Okay, it's a good spot to use a rope, get down into this canyon. Okay, get a harness on, get down there. Oh, look. Big old scorpion here. Look, he's just under this rock trying to get back to the shade. Big clawed desert scorpion. There we go, look at him. See those big claws? And then the venom sac and the end of the tail. But the big claws means the power is in the claws, less in the venom. It's actually the small desert scorpions, the small claws, and the more potent venom sac are the ones that can kill. If this guy grabbed you, stung you, it'd be like a hornet. It would hurt like hell, but you wouldn't die. Still not a fun bedmate when you're sleeping out in the desert. Another thing you got to be mindful of. So look, where I move my shade, that's where he goes. He wants to shade from the heat of the sun. It's like the camel spiders in the desert. Soldiers often think that the spiders are chasing them, but actually what they're after again in the heat of the day is a shade. So you're backing away. Look, I'm backing away, and this scorpion's just following the shadow. I move out of it, he moves into it. Pretty cool. Oh, a little bit of shade here from the heat of the sun. That is welcome. Wow, still crazy hot. I thought 12 o'clock would be the hottest time, but it feels like it's getting even hotter. Chasing the shadows a little bit down this canyon, trying to use those, stay out of the beating heat of the sun. You travel in that for long, you're gonna lose. The sun is in charge out here. As a survivor, you gotta think smart. You gotta avoid it. You gotta use your brain and try and keep your brain cool. That's why when you get too hot, you start to make bad decisions. Good desert survivor is smart. So yeah, we're going to chase these shadows, stay this side of the canyon. And then it's all about risk, reward. There's some caves up there. Do I climb up? It's going to take a lot of effort in the sun. But once I'm at those caves, I'll have good shelter. If you want to sleep the night in the desert, that's the sort of thing you want to go for. Or do you stay down in this canyon? The problem with the canyon, obviously, is you're sharing it with all the creepy crawlies, and you always got danger of flash floods at the bottom of a canyon. I just take 2 minutes to recover a little bit in the shade. Wow, hard going in the desert in this heat. "40 days. And people think I'm a good survivor. Hardcore.
Water is extremely scarce out here, but this little pit might have what I'm looking for.
At least it's better traveling in the shade. And look, you see there's definitely been water here. All of this is just dried and cracked. So this definitely fills up with water when it rains. Oh, wow, look, you wouldn't want this dropping on you. All of this flash flood debris. And then the water washes all the sand away and you get these rocks wedged in these narrow canyons. This is why this would be a bad place to make camp, not only because of potential flash flood, but potentially all of this dislodging. Let's move quickly. Oh, we found water. Look. That's because it was slippy. Look, it's wetter, damper here. A little bit there. Maybe round the corner as well. Definitely going to use this. There's not much of it, but look. Use one of these micro filter straws. Super good. You just suck through this, and it filters it through the carbon and cleans it. Oh, boy, that is good. One thing I do know is that Jesus didn't have a water filter, but any water in the desert is life-giving and good. You do need to be careful, though. A lot of this is going to be stagnant, and I'm not the only person or living thing that's going to be drinking from it. All the animals, snakes, reptiles are going to be drinking from that. And this sort of water, if you don't filter it, it's just as likely to make you sick. It's another of the things that Jesus would have had to contend with, any desert survivor out here. If you don't have one of these, least you can do, just get your bandana and drench it and cool yourself. And then just suck the moisture out of that. And at least it's going to filter it a little bit through the material. I mean, Jesus probably did a bit of that, just filtering water, squeezing it through his clothes, through the cloth. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to do something. Wow, and you can also see why Jesus talked about water being life-giving. Oh. Just that is good. I mean, that is one thing as a survivor, I understand the value of water. I mean, there have been times where I'd give everything I own for a glass of cool water. When your mouth is so dry. Yeah, this is good finding this. Not a lot of it, look, it's like gone now. That much. Okay, let's keep moving.
Out here, you really appreciate how essential water is to survival. The body craves water, and according to Jesus, so does the spirit. He once said, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink." This came from a man who reportedly turned water into wine. So many of the recorded miracles of Jesus included water, from calming the storms to walking on seas. But one of my favorite applies to us all. Jesus taught that whoever so much as served a cup of cool water to someone in need was actually giving it to God. It seems clear. Water is life to the body and the spirit. Thankfully, the sun will be setting soon. The cooler air will be nice at first, but out here, the temperature can drop fast by as much as 25 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So I need to find a shelter while the sun is still out. Jesus once said, "Foxes have holes and the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." He would have looked for places to stay, just like this. Certainly not how I'd imagined life for the Son of God.
This wouldn't be a bad place to shelter. Look, it goes all the way into the rock here. Just check there are no snakes or anything in here. Yeah, look, and get all the way in. That's going to give a little bit of protection. And also we're above that canyon floor, so if there's flash flood, we're raised up a little bit. Looks like animal of some sort has used this. Oh yeah, look, little droppings. There are not a lot of animals out here. Really, it's reptiles, rodents, maybe the odd wild goat. Not a lot of companionship. But a good place to shelter and rest. You know, if you think for the survivor, always busy. It's like, you know, you've got just staying alive as full time. Finding shelter, finding food, finding water. Jesus survived for 40 days without the food, but he definitely needed the shelter and definitely needed fluids. But there would have also been a lot of time just sat with just, you know, nature and the stars as your blanket, the rock and the thorns and the earth as your mattress. A lot of solitude. You know, that can be hard for people. People find it hard being on their own for like an afternoon. You know, 40 days out in the rock and thorns and harsh environment of this desert. But he also would have had some moments just sat on his own quietly thinking, first of all, wow, the world's incredible. And secondly, the next 3 years are going to be crazy. You know, I sometimes wonder how much he knew. It's a weird concept to think somebody's fully human, but also if they're the Almighty. That's a weird thing to get your head around. Does that mean you know everything? Does that mean you know exactly what's going to happen? Do you feel everything? All that fear, all that loneliness? My impression is Jesus was much more human than sometimes people make him out to be. Okay, enough yakking. I need a rest. Oh. Everything hurts. Not a place to be on your own, really. Not for long.
Just being out here at nighttime, you feel the isolation. The wilderness reduces you to your most primitive needs. Jesus endured a literal wilderness, but in life, we all face seasons of drought, loneliness, and lack. The wilderness is a place of just enough, where our character is forged, where we must rely on our instincts and learn to trust in a higher power. This is where you find out who you really are.
So the sun is up. And that's a nice feeling. Suddenly you feel that little bit of warmth. So different from cold desert nights. But also know that within like an hour, this place will once more be a furnace. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get some travel done. Try and follow the shade this side of the canyon while the sun's that way. Before it gets too hot. Okay, heading west. Just spending a little time in the harsh environment of this desert, to be honest, is pretty humbling. You know, what Jesus would have gone through, 40 days of extreme survival out here. It's hard, actually, even for someone who's got experience of this stuff. It's hard for me to really imagine that, what it would do to you. And then at the end, you've got to be faced with those satanic temptations. It truly must have built an incredible inner resilience, but it also forged in him this like streak of steel, something special from his time in the desert. And at the end of these 40 days of brutal testing, he came out of the desert ready for the battle ahead. And what a battle it would be. Yeah, there it is. Bang on 100 meters. That's how we're getting out of the desert. Well done, the team. To be honest, if that wasn't there, I'm not sure how much more I'd have in me at this stage. Okay, let's get to the vehicle, get out of here. Okay, we're out of here.
After his 40-day trial in the wilderness, Jesus set out on his world-changing mission. We've all heard the eyewitness stories. Thousands of people being fed with a handful of bread and a few fishes. Blind eyes opening. The dead rising again. And Jesus walking on water. All of this was said to have happened in a few small towns around the Sea of Galilee. So that's where I'm headed next, to see where Jesus earned his renegade reputation. If you thought the wilderness was wild, get ready for Galilee. From the lowest point on earth to the Sea of Galilee, I'm traveling through Israel on a quest to find out what this man Jesus was really like. I want to uncover the highs, the lows, and all the gritty details of this refugee, renegade, and redeemer who changed the world forever.